kind of like what they saw like on the human also, because they couldn't do the research on the humans. And this I was thinking is also interesting the sound-wise, because like piezo, we know how it's working. It's like on vibrations, and also here there is some research, is not confirmed yet about the jellyfish, but they could kind of hear through this that they get some pressure, through this is kind of they are reacting to the vibration. But it's, like there are some people is saying yes, some people is saying no, so that's why I'm trying to say like there is an article that actually appears in Nature, no, but it's like only one article, so like in private talk I'm saying always it's totally true, but in the seminars I try to follow this. And here's the very famous picture, like this is the most typical picture of this immortal jellyfish, which is one species which lives in the Mediterranean Sea and Japan Sea, and this is the species which I was mentioning before, which has this kind of possibility to go from this adulthood back to the polyp state, wait till the environment changes to the temperature or whatever they would like to have, and then they go back to the normal stage. So this is like their kind of internal cycle, It's not only genetical material which is repeating, it's actually the same organism. And here is the market for this, It's like, it's really amazing, but like in Asia, there is so many creams which they are claiming to have this collagen from this jellyfish. Because actually all the jellyfish, they have collagen, which is the same as our protein for our skin, so it's very quite present in creams also by us in Europe, but it's not it's not such a propaganda. And then if you Google in Asia market, it's like big thing, it's like immortal. But they put all these different kinds of jellyfish next to it, They don't put this one. There is Aurelia Rita, which, okay, it's regenerating. This is this Victoria, help me out with the name. Yeah, so, it's like, but it's good. So here I have something for Christian.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the work which Christian is also very much interested, and this is like dealing with green fluorescent protein, which got like also Nobel Prize in 2008. And it's one of the proteins which is helping a lot, like you see that green rabbit, that was like very famous picture, which is helping a lot to, in the medicine research to find some diseases and so on, to track them down. Okay, here are some moments from my first residence in Izmir Bay in Turkey, where I was working with Marine Station with Betül Bekuş and Güzel Yukur. They have been like my advisors on the project. It was really great, they stuck me as an artist into Marine Institute. I got like 2 PhD students to work with me, and like all the labs whatever we needed, so it was amazing. Actually on the end project was like kind of combining arts and science. I was invited a bit as a mentor and also to kind of run the project for a month or 2. And then on the end, it was 9 people in the group, because, we just started to grow and grow and grow. Like, my specialization were more on jellyfish, but there was also other people which they have been dealing with different issues of the bay, also with environmental issues, with photography. It was a very mixed group. And it was kind of for all of them, like, first step into collaborating together. I really love that drawing, because it's very local, I know, but we started 5 minutes later also. So it's just like that, I finished this. It's like, it's drawing which is like typical Turkish drawing, original, with gold, with everything what is next to it, but it's variation on one of the microscopic pictures which we did in our team. And, yep, I will finish here, otherwise I will talk for longer, and Nora wants to talk with me now, so. You come here with me to talk? But that was quite good on time, like.
It was, very much so.
Yeah.
Robertina told me to be strict with her, so I'm not taking that out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And maybe you can show us some more photos as we're talking. I'd like to open the floor to the audience straight away, if there's any immediate questions. Yeah, here you go. Do we need a microphone for the floor?
I can raise my voice.
Okay.
So,
But it's just Jonas is
For the streaming.
yeah.
Jonas, we have streaming and she has question.
I don't have any wireless.
So you can come to us.
No, nobody will ask us anymore anything. It's like,
Hello, nice to see you from a close distance. Well, there are many questions raising from your presentation, but I'd like to start with a very technical one, an easy one. I like jellyfish a lot too, and I used to live in Trieste, and on the bay I spent a lot of time watching them moving, and especially those one you've chosen. Well, the one you have in your sculpture, because they are like a drawing and they are transparent, and you can really see them moving in the water, and they're really nice to see. How do you deal with them? I mean, do you catch them, put into your sculpture? Do you grow them and then do you free them? I can imagine sometimes they can die, but how do you transport them, and how do you deal with them while you are working with them?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. So with jellyfish is like this, like for the first time that I started to work with them, like really work, it was in Izmir where we had them in the sea. So this was easy. Like we catch them, we do the exploration, we put them back to the sea, It's like collateral damage, it was really almost nothing, but it happens sometimes with some animals. And it's also like these jellyfish, they are very, very good survivors as a species. Like they live more than 500 million years already on the earth, they're present in the seas since forever. They will go over all the environmental changes, because they're really easy to adapt and so on. But as an individual, they're super, super fragile. So you have to be really careful also in aquaristic, because if you have like these air bubbles, and one air bubble comes into jellyfish, just like it can die very quickly, because it's like 99% of the water. So which means that it's like really, really fragile. So during my time in Izmir, for these 3 months, it was okay, we had them there in the sea, we took them back. Then for the project in Ljubljana, we have been dealing with lots of questions, where to get the seawater, where to get that, it's like, it's not easy to maintain them. It's like also, always when I show this piece, it's like always hassle for organizers, me and everybody, but it's fun also at the same time. So the second time we had them, like we bought these special aquariums, which you see them also in the installation. So, these are not custom made, because I prefer to buy something which is already researched, and it's from Cubic Aquariums. It's like one firm which are very open, it's very small, it's like almost do-it-yourself, but, they sell stuff. So they also help me, if I have some questions, problems with aquariums, want to change something, they're very quick in communication. Like we had some problems with them, they sent me some new ones, it's kind of okay. And it's very important because the jellyfish, they are plankton, they don't swim. Like they do have some swimming powers, and they do left up, up down, left right. But in general, they are drawn by the sea, by the current. And here, instead of aquariums, we have this artificial current also, which is like done through this double circulation. So when I had this exhibition with robotic sculpture in Ljubljana, we had them for 4 months. And now further on, always, because the research is kind of closed for now. I'm waiting for some new funding to get some institute that I can stay there and hang there and work there, because I'm very intrigued with this pharmaceutical, would like to go further. I think this would be nice to have like a third step of the project, but it's in the progress now. So it's always like this, when I show this, or when I have the performance, or I have the installation, I always try to communicate with local aquariums or aquaristical shops or something, like in Trieste, I was just last week, and the organizer got an aquaristic shop that they bought the jellyfish because they actually planned to sell them, and we could use them for the installation, you know. So it's like we put them in, we give them back, you know, because also like I started to collaborate with one aquarium in Pula, which is near to Ljubljana. And they have now like 2 species, and now they are also growing bigger with their kind of species. I think they will get also Victorian all these species. Now so it's like always very practical, you know. Also in France, always when I have whatever happening in France, it's I have a good collaboration with Cine Aqua. It's the biggest private aquarium in Paris. So when I can borrow it by them, but I have to bring them back to them also. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very important to have also like ethical attitude towards the animals, you know, because it's nice to give them somewhere. Because if you travel so much as I do, and then it's you have animals which they're really hardcore to maintain, you know, like everyday food twice and cleaning once and temperature and water and so on. You know, it's really hard to ask your friends. So it's not a goldfish, you know. And even the goldfish is not something that you would just like. So yeah. So I try to be responsible as much as possible in my powers, of course.
And you're collaborating with the communities, with the local communities, I mean, local aquarium collectors or scientific also. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I'd like to follow up on sort of your whole presentation showed this propensity that we have for using the living things around us in different ways, right? Mm-hmm. And before you started talking, we were chatting about your view of our anthropocentrism and wanting to get away from that a little bit. And yet, your whole project, in a sense, deals with our relationship with jellyfish, you know? So do you ever feel like that challenge is almost insurmountable, like getting away from our point of view?
Like in Anthropocene view and all this, like there is always, I have always this wishful thinking how to kind of overcome this, but I don't have good recipe, like I couldn't find a good way how to express it, you know, like also when I read, like also Donna Haraway, when she writes about the companion species, or she writes about the Cthulhucene, it's like new concept about not Anthropocene, but Cthulhu, the Cthulhu from Robert Lovely, and it's like new concept about the apocalyptical end of everything, especially humans, you know. Like, I don't know, like I try to follow up this all the time, but then on the end you come to this point, like it's really hard even to have the other point of view of other person, you know?
Of course.
And then to go into animal and like these interceptions and transfers, they can be very interesting, and it's really, like there's lots of art pieces and artworks and projects in art science which they are dealing with this topic, and but it's really hard to come to the level that we could say that it's, you know, for me already, if you come to the level of equality, it's already like, wow, you know? And to go over this, I don't know, like maybe somebody has some other opinion, but it's like however we are criticizing Anthropocene, we are again criticizing it from our Anthropocene perspective, so it's some looping situation.
Yeah. And one of the draws of the jellyfish for us, of course, is this idea of the immortal creature, as you were talking about. So I was wondering if you'd like to say a little bit more about how you relate to that, apart from the symposium that you had where you discussed the whole issues. Do you draw it into your works?
No, like the topic was kind of inspirational of the concept, you know. And I always try to have like, okay, this is the conceptual frame, this is the inspiration, this is the arts and science research, you know, because there are different steps of the development of the project. And like I was also doing lots with hydras, which they are freshwater polyps, which they are also like immortal in this theoretical biological sense. And this is something which is really hard to grab, you know, for most of the people. Always when we talk about this topic, you know, it's like immortality is something like talking about the dead, you know, like there is one fact for sure for all of us in this room, that sooner or later we will die, you know, like this nobody can avoid.
Had to come.
Yeah, had to come this. And this is coming with these projects of like regenerative research, you know, research of regenerative medicine, of this prolonging the life, you know. You know, like what's it called when they freeze you?
Cryogenics.
Yeah.
You know, I just read like 2 days or 3 days ago that there was like 2 years old child, because she's super sick, so they put her in, you know. There was like lots of possibilities we're thinking about them, also because one of the things, if we prolong our lives, we can travel further, you know, and it's also like going with the space exploration and so on, because for now it takes, I don't know, 5 years to come to Mars, you know, which is really far.
With the new, there is a new motor, and maybe you can get there in moments.
We need
Yeah,
to.
there is sorry. Yeah, there is a new motor, and the NASA, it's kind of the work right now. This motor, it can reach Mars in months, maybe 1 year.
Yes.
Mhm.
I would like to know a little bit more about these organisms. That I would like to know a bit more about the organisms that you have at the first version of your piece. This no, the other one, the artificial organism. What it is, the robotic sculpture. I mean, why did you make on that? I mean, is it just a kind of science fiction, imaginary?
Yeah, it's a speculation and it's imaginary, and I think now it's the moment that Slavko has to come here again. Sorry. But he's collaborating with me a lot, you know, actually, like it was Slavko and Miha Presker. Miha Presker was helping with this kinetic sculpture as a mechanism. But like we have all the tracking system and so on, which was mostly done by Slavko, so sorry.
Hi. The jellyfish are very subtle creatures to track, so we decided to use optical tracking. So there is a camera following the jellyfish and analyzing their movements.
You know, it's here in between the tanks. You don't see on this photo. Do I have that?
Yeah, one back. Look.
Here's the camera. Oh, no.
At the last tank, yeah. So this camera is analyzing the movement because they're so subtle creatures, they're mostly water, and this is the most information we could get for them. So basically, how much they move, if they blob, and where they are, their speed, and this information is then analyzed, interpreted, and transferred to this robotic device which Miha Presker built.
And this robotic device is kind of like breathing, you know?
Yes,
Like,
breathing.
show it, like, it looks like breathing, but you know, it's also, okay, one of the idea of back, you know, in the backbone of the project, which I don't want to, but it's also like when they do this artificial 3D printing of inner organs, and when they, first they have to clean the skeleton of the organ, you know, and if you clean the skeleton of the heart, for instance, you get something like this.
The ghost organs.
Yeah, and it looks like one of these ghost organs, you know. So most of the people which they're working in this kind of regenerative medicine field, everybody was like, oh, you know, and they kept all like, do you have the real tissues here inside? And like, we wanted to have these real tissues, but then it started to be very complicated. But then we realized that, you know, with the plastical sculpture, which is moving, we will have the same effect actually, because the topic which we are talking, you know, okay, it's nicer to have tissues, but it comes more maintenance, more complications. So yeah, so say this.
So we've more or less used our designated time for Robertina's talk. Is Ben here yet?
But the talk is, the person who is talking is not here yet.
Ben is not here yet.
He came last night. We saw him.
Yeah, I don't know why he's not here. So
should we-
Maybe we can
Continue?
switch like the other.
Yeah, we can switch or this, or we can, yeah. I think
Who is now, like, because there is some people from seminar now here also.
Yeah, and then Gina.
Uh-huh.
Maybe Gina wants to.
Huh? Okay, we can talk for 2 more minutes. so-
Yeah, let's just continue talking. If he's not here, we
but,
have some more time.
Yeah, no, I have a question for you because you're working from this ethical point of view a lot and so on. So what is kind of your resume, like if you see, like how you are dealing on the ethical issues with the artists which we are working in this kind of living system situations?
That's a complex question. And I really, it resonated with me when you said at the beginning of your talk, this problem of complexity, right? Because you want to represent something in as complex a way as you can to sort of show the real scope of it. But at the same time, that's almost impossible, right? Because the more you nuance, the less easy it is to take something in. And that's as true in language as in my writing. I've had the same troubles as you've had in your visual expressions. So ethical issues when it comes to bioart are extremely complex, and I'm going to talk quite a bit about it in my own presentation, so I'll save some of it for then. But if I can twist it a little bit and go into this jellyfish topic again, I'd like to tell a little anecdote from this scholar that I mentioned to you, Elizabeth Johnson, who did some field work as well in a jellyfish laboratory. And she told this wonderful story about a researcher, a postdoc, who was doing work on these jellyfish and their regenerative capacities, and who cared for them so deeply. So he would try to mend them and to make them regrow more than what he was supposed to. He spent a lot more energy and time on the creatures that were really destroyed. As you said, they're very fragile.
Yep.
So sometimes you have to sort of give up and go on. But he really just deeply cared for these creatures. And there's this issue when it comes to research, particularly, that you're supposed to have this distance at the same time as you're trying to give the laboratory creatures the best care that you can. And especially when it comes to a creature like the jellyfish that doesn't actually have a brain, that we don't consider to be sentient, that sort of crosses some boundaries. So in the end, he actually had to leave the research facility, and he ended up running this animal care center out in the woods in Canada.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Yes, and I think that was an interesting
yeah.
twist at the end of the story, right? Because it shows this difficulty of caring for something within the research paradigm, in a sense.
Yeah, the
And
distance
artists,
is important.
yeah, and I think artists play an important part in that, because you can sort of scoop around that a little bit and actually look at these issues of laboratory creatures in a different way. So it's a way of highlighting some of the ethical issues that go on in the lab as well, I think. And it seems to me like you're
Yeah, I
trying
was working.
to see some
Yeah,
of that.
we can also with these colleagues. Like that's why I put these pictures from Izmir, you know, because you see, like here where you see so many jellyfish, this was actually true. We went with GoPro under the water, and it was just like magic, you know, like magical for my visual aesthetical pleasure, I would say. But also during the research in institute, of course, there have been also some cutting of jellyfish and this kind of stuff involved, which I talk about this in the talks, but it's really hard to show this in the artworks, because already I had like lots of people attacking me for just bringing the jellyfish into the gallery. Just the fact that you have, and that's why I decided to have these custom-made aquariums. That, you know, it's done, you can have it at home, you can have it in gallery, you can have it in Science Institute, I don't care, you know, it's just a space where you bring the stuff, and it's in the environment which it should be, supposedly for the kind of standards which we have proposed, you know. It's not that I'm just like washing my hands, but I think it's very important that public, which comes into the space, will understand that I don't do there some special hacking with them at that moment. but there is lots of recordings and lots of devices which we used, you know, and, you know, like for the microscopy, the jellyfish on the end was not so live anymore on the end, you know, so there is lots of these questions also when you work with them, and that's why, you know, for me, 3 months of the research, I got the most material which I needed. But I collaborate also with one marine station in Slovenia, with one scientist there, which is like working in the jellyfish field also for years. So I got also lots of data, informations from them also, and then I try to compile all of this, you know. So it's lots of collaborative work done, you know, and like this project, like I'm running most of the research by myself, but you know, I have different collaborative projects in different levels of stepping into authorships in different. This is another topic.
Yeah. So Gino, you can tell us when you're ready, right? So we just
Yeah,
continue chatting until then.
Yeah, you can talk. Yeah.
Maybe we can have a small break.
Oh yeah.
Because we have coffee here, and then we just keep on.
But she wants to say also something, and we still like to talk.
Yes.
Yeah, come. You can also sit with us.
No.
We can have like hour of talk.
As a fellow artist, I'd like to ask you, you told us that you're trained in sculpture, if I understood well, and how was this, how this shift happened by your art? Because your work is quite sculptural somehow. I mean, you see how you think about the form and the light. You see, I could see your approach in there. But I'd like to ask you how your experience in this shift was.
No, it was just like this, you know, when I was studying in Slovenia, and then I went to Erasmus exchange to Sweden, and I was like coming to one university where you can have everything, also Arduino classes, stuff like this, you know, and then I started to play with electronics and a bit of programming, because I'm still a very lousy programmer after years of being in this field. Like, I'm good in PD, but everything else is like really... but so like through this kind of playing with artificial kind of systems, you know, and we had like some robotic systems that they have been like coexisting because of each other, you know, and then it's like kind of like it was very quick step into biology, you know, because if you deal with biological issues and transfer them into the data analyze installation, it's kind of interesting. But then I was started to be more and more intrigued with the biology, and actually since I was a child I was like collecting all the animals, and I had like my collections at home, so it was this kind of like, you know, and there is also, I have to admit that it was also fascination, which is maybe sometimes not the most reasonable thing to go into the exploration of something. You know, fascination can be very much blinding you also during the process sometimes. But with me it was, you know, like I was always obsessed with the seas, like everything which is connected with the waters in general was very revealing to me all the time. And then also the animals and jellyfish I adore since I was child. And you know, then it came very good opportunity that I was invited to the Marine Institute in Slovenia actually. It's in Piran, it's not far from Trieste. And actually they got some money from UNESCO, and from some strange reason somebody got to me and called me to come there, you know. But they actually invited me as a sculptor, so they have been thinking that I will do with the money some wave or, you know, some expression of the sea. And I was like, oh, scientist, you know. And then I started to kind of molest them, I would say there, you know, like asking lots of questions and so on. So it was kind of like 1/1 of the project, which was on the end not so successful because it was strange clash of me communicating with them and, you know, different languages and so on. So, but after years, you know, when you're in the field and after different experience, you start to see how you have to approach to people that you can actually start to collaborate. Because especially if you collaborate with people which they're coming from the science field and they didn't have so much acquaintance with the artists, and they have all this idea about us, like which they are very stereotypical. And it's also like me, when I was going first time to the institute, I was also like having these all ideas how the scientists should be, but then you start to meet with them, and on the end you see they're the same like you, and they just like to go to the field research and look around the stuff and so on. So, yeah. And now we can drink coffee, huh?
Okay, let's go.
Thank you.
Ostavi mi laptop, molim te. Ostavi mi laptop. Treba mi dva. Jedan za tekst čitati, a drugi za...
Na kojem ćeš kazati?
Na tvome, da ne iskoči nešto čudno s moga. Ne, samo ga govorim. Ne treba. Samo slika. Ne, nisam multimedija, we haven't properly met Gino.
I'm really curious about your research what you're doing. You have to tell us more. Super. You have to come to our lab. With me, Gino, Slavko, and Kat, we have already deep diving workshops. You should come to us. But now you're moderating. I couldn't have time to come here, but I'm moderating. So that's how it goes. Dam na full screen?
Da. Ćemo prvo...
Samo moraš klikat.
Da, znam.
Oh.
Back!
Hey.
Too many spoilers.
Don't forget.
So should we get coffee first and then...
Okay, yes.
There's coffee over here, I think.
Yes. Well, let's have the coffee, no? And then... Okay, so we have 10 minutes and then we come back.
About what I'll be talking about, if it matches what you're expecting. I don't know much about what I do. So my artistic is mostly about finding ways to create informational and link to things that you can see easily. So that's like large scale networks, so we start anything that lies outside our immediate trying to create an emotional well, so I was going to talk about the three pieces that I have some projects our relationship relationship with environmental change and affecting the environment. Climate change
And then I made a lot of things with proteins, artificial
missions that you go on.
Now we are trying
So it's got sometimes
We're going to speak to him now.
Yeah, we're good. Now I give you now I'm torturing students.